everyone. Welcome to the latest Carson's Take 5. It's a special one. I'm where I normally am in my basement. But Sonu, where are you in the world?
I am in Istanbul right now, in Turkey. And
Wow.
obviously, there's a lot going on here because the president, a few days before I got here, which was about last Friday, the president imprisoned the mayor of Istanbul
Oh, wow.
because, it, there was, he's his biggest rival. And that's, I
Hmm.
guess, what you do here. But then obviously, that's my excuse for coming to Turkey. I'm doing global macro research because the currency fell about 30%. The stock
Wow.
market crashed here. Interest rates are 46%. Can you believe that? 46%. You did not want to take a mortgage out in Turkey, by the way.
Wow. All that happened when you were there?
Just before I got here. So I walked
Okay.
into the thick of things. I mean, there's supposed to be protests and stuff, but as you can see, my kids are having ice cream down here.
Yeah.
Everyone's having a good time on the street. So I'm in a
Wow.
touristy place. What do you say?
All right. Well, I didn't quite know all that. I was traveling earlier this week also. So, well, good. I knew you were in
Yes.
Turkey. I didn't know all the drama with that. But
There's a
well,
lot
stay
of drama
safe.
here.
Yeah, stay
Yes.
safe and have fun. And spring break. So lots of people are on spring break. I'm on spring break next week. Lots of people are taking a little vacation. So we wish everyone a happy spring break. But let's get to it here. We kind of kicked around some things to talk about. We're going to title this week's Take 5 Things We Know, right? There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things we don't know. But there's also
Right.
some stuff we do know, and that's what we're going to try to focus on. I mean, Sonu, I'll start, and then let you go. We know historically the first part of March isn't that great. That checked
Right.
out. We've had some more strength lately. We've had the volatility. Well, I'm going to keep this real simple. On the 14th and 17th of this month of March, we have what we call a buying thrust, where the 90% of the stocks higher on the S&P 500, 2 straight days. What we know is in history, Sonu, when we see something like that, usually the lows are in. Usually there's extremely
Mhm.
better than average returns 3 and 6 months later. So yes, there's a lot of uncertainty out there, but there's something happening under the surface, in my opinion, that looks pretty darn positive. What are some other things that we know?
We know that inflation, I know tariffs are in the news, but
Yeah.
otherwise, the inflation outlook actually looks pretty good. In fact, I would say, this week we are going to get the PCE index, the Fed's preferred metric. That's for February. That is likely to be hot. So prepare for that, right? Prepare for headlines around that. But going forward, I think we're likely to see some downside surprises for inflation. And by the way, that's with the tariff headline news all around us, right? So
Mhm.
one thing we know is that, look, yes, tariffs, there's a risk around that. But where, as you and I have talked about, a lot, the biggest risk around that is the Fed stays on hold for longer. So
Mhm.
in a sense, we know, okay, they're not going to cut rates immediately. So, that's not going to be a tailwind for markets over the next 2 months. But in the second
Right.
half of the year, we know rate cuts are likely coming. Rate cuts are
Mhm.
coming.
No.
And then Congress is actually making reasonable progress on tax cut legislation. So that's a
Right.
positive. That's an opportunity. We know it's coming. And, we talked about that in our outlook. Yes, there are threats, the risks of elevated interest rates and the tariff threat, obviously, 25% tariffs on autos, things like that. But
Mhm.
opportunities, I think, still outweigh the threats. And the biggest
No.
opportunity, obviously, Fed rate cuts in the second half of the year. But maybe sooner rather than later, we'll make some progress, like I said, on tax cuts. And that's going to be positive for markets.
Well said. You know what we knew, with President Trump when he won, we were looking at probably, potentially an extension of the taxes, right? The Trump
Hmm.
tax cuts from 2017, extension there. We were looking at probably deregulation, and we were looking at tariffs. Now the problem is it's not happening in that order. That's what's upset the apple cart. But there are some potential positives still out there. We do know that. Also, what do we know? Keep this fairly simple. We're looking at record S&P 500 earnings this year. Yes, maybe if tariffs come in high, you take a little bit off earnings. We're still probably going to see double-digit earnings growth this year, which is, again, at
Hmm.
all-time record highs. We also know profit margins are extremely high. So if we have these higher tariffs potentially, it doesn't mean that all the autos you're going to buy are 25% more. Companies can do certain things. They can eat some of that cost in profit margins because companies have the high profit margins right now. Not saying that's a perfect scenario. We're just saying that doesn't blindly mean every car is going to cost 25% more if you bought it and it was made outside the US, because high profit margins are a little bit of a buffer for corporations here.
Right.
So we know those things. So no, we've got, I don't know, how much time? Like a minute or
And
two.
car
What's
prices,
something else
speaking
we
of
know?
car prices, are not going to go up by 25%. Yes, it's going to
Yeah.
go up. But then that gets to the difference between what is a price level shift
Yep.
right? Yes, the price of a Mercedes, for example,
Yeah.
could go up $5,000, right? That's a big shift, but it doesn't keep going up $5,000 month after month after month unless
Yeah.
the White House decides to put 25% tariffs month after month. So
True.
that's inflation is if you get a continuous increase in prices month after month after month. That's not what we are going to see. And in fact, now we're done with the auto tariffs, right? 25% tariffs. We have that. I think everyone prices that in and moves forward.
No, well said. Something else we know throughout history, right? At times change, computers, algorithms, lots of wild stuff. But we know market sentiment and human sentiment, investor sentiment doesn't change. People get too excited at the peak and too bearish at the bottom. What we've seen the last couple of weeks is some extreme amounts of negativity. Keep this fairly simple. Put to call ratios have seen some pretty significant spikes, meaning option traders are worried. Investor sentiment polls are flashing levels, Sonu, honestly, that we've seen at previous
Wow.
major bear markets. So again, that's one thing because people don't feel consumer confidence came in quite low just recently also. So people don't feel very good. They're quite worried about what's going on. Go back and look at the history books. When everyone's thinking alike, someone isn't thinking. That tends to be when you have a washout, all the sellers exhaust themselves. And the good news, buyers tend to step in. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you think about it. But if you look at market history, when everyone's bearish, you're closer to a low than you are high. So we're probably at the end. What's one final thing that we know out there?
Consumer balance sheets are strong.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Household balance sheet. The labor market is still hanging in there. Layoffs are low. We just got initial claims data. Well, it's evening in Turkey, in Istanbul right now, but morning your time, we just got
Right.
initial claims data. And still on the low side, which is telling us
Good.
that layoffs are low. The labor market could be better, but it's not falling apart. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
know.
No. Well said. Well said. So again, this was the latest Carson's Take 5. Ryan and Sonu. Where are you? Just right
On
downtown
location,
Istanbul? Where are you exactly?
Istanbul, I'm in a place called Galata, in front of the Galata Tower. You can't really
Neat.
see it
There
because
it
it's
is.
really bright behind me. But this is
Okay.
a scene here.
Yeah.
It's all around. It's a busy street.
So it
My
doesn't
kids
look
just
super
finished their ice
warm.
cream, and there we go.
You got a jacket on. Is it not super warm, I guess, or so-so?
No,
Or
it's not warm. It's actually quite cold, and it was
okay.
cooler. So it's about 55, 60 degrees.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not bad, but it's warmer than Chicago.
Well, there you go.
I'm not
That's one way
complaining.
to look at it. That's one way to look at it. Well, everyone, again, this was your latest Carson's Take 5 with Ryan and Sonu. Sonu on location. What do we know? We do know there are some worries out there, some concerns, but we also know there are some positive things that are out there. With all that,
Mhm.
we'll see everyone next week. Take care, everybody. Thank you.